The Arizona desert stretched endless under a merciless sun, its sand shimmering like molten gold. Caleb Holt, a bounty hunter with a reputation carved in grit and gunpowder, rode his Mustang Rusty along a faint trail. His hat, worn and dust-stained, shadowed his gray eyes as they scanned the horizon for signs of Jack Viper Malone, an outlaw whose gang had left a trail of chaos from Tucson to the Mexican border. Viper's latest crime, stealing a payroll from a stagecoach and kidnapping an Apache scout, had raised the bounty to a sum that could tempt any man. But for Caleb, it wasn't just about the money. He'd seen too many innocents suffer at the hands of men like Viper, and each hunt was a chance to right a wrong he could never undo. The trail led to Blackthorn Canyon, a jagged scar in the earth rumored to be cursed by the Apache. Caleb wasn't one for ghost stories, but the canyon's silence, broken only by Rusty's hooves crunching against gravel, set his nerves on edge. The air felt heavy, as if the rocks themselves held their breath. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in fiery streaks, a sharp cry cut through the stillness. A woman's voice, fierce and unyielding. Caleb's hand dropped to the Colt revolver at his hip, his heart kicking against his ribs. He urged Rusty forward, weaving through narrow rock walls until he reached a clearing. There, two of Viper's men had pinned a young Apache woman against a boulder. Her dark hair fell in waves, her eyes blazing with defiance despite the odds. She clutched a small knife, her stance that of a cornered panther. "Back away from her," Caleb called, his voice low but carrying the weight of a man who'd faced death and walked away. The outlaws turned, hands hovering over their pistols. One, a wiry man with a scar, twisting his lip, sneered. "This ain't your concern, stranger." Caleb's gaze was cold as steel. "I make it my concern." The second outlaw, burly and red-faced, reached for his gun. Caleb's draw was a blur, his shot kicking up dust an inch from the man's boot. "Next one find your heart," Caleb said. The outlaws exchanged a glance, then bolted into the canyon's shadows. Caleb let them go. Chasing them in this maze was a fool's errand. He turned to the woman, holstering his gun and keeping his distance. Her buckskin dress was torn at the shoulder, a shallow cut on her arm glistening with blood. She stood tall, her knife still raised, her eyes searching for any hint of deceit. "You hurt?" Caleb asked, his tone soft but cautious. She studied him, her grip on the knife easing slightly. "I am fine," she said, her voice steady despite the ordeal. "Why did you help me?" "Didn't look like a fair fight," Caleb said, tipping his hat. "Name's Caleb Holt." "You got one." "Nijoni," she replied, her eyes still wary. "I am Apache." Caleb nodded. "Those men with Viper?" Her jaw tightened. "Yes. They took my brother, Tarak, a scout for our people. I was tracking them when they caught me." Caleb's fist clenched. Viper's gang was worse than he'd thought, and kidnapping an Apache scout meant trouble that could spark a war between settlers and the tribe. "You know where they're holding him?" Nijoni pointed toward the canyon's depths. "Their camp is near the old silver mines, but the paths are hidden. You'll need a guide." Caleb hesitated. He'd always worked alone, trusting no one since the day he'd lost everything. But Nijoni's courage, her willingness to face danger for her kin, stirred a respect he hadn't felt in years. "Then you'd best come with me," he said, surprising himself. Nijoni's eyes narrowed, weighing his words. "If you betray me, cowboy, you'll regret it." A faint smile tugged at Caleb's lips. Noted. They rode through the night, Nijoni leading with the tracker's instinct. She moved like she was born of the desert, reading signs in the stars and stones that Caleb couldn't see. He found himself watching her, not just her skill, but the quiet strength in her posture, the way her hair caught the moonlight. He pushed the thoughts away. This was a job, and distractions could get them both killed. At dawn, they reached a ridge overlooking Viper's camp, a ramshackle setup of tents and crates nestled among abandoned mine shafts. Tarak sat bound near a fire, his face bruised but defiant. Viper, a towering figure with a snake tattoo curling up his neck, sharpened a knife with deliberate menace, his men lounging around him. "There's 10 of them," Caleb whispered, crouched beside Nijoni. "We can't take him head on." "I won't leave Tarak," Nijoni said, her voice fierce. Didn't say we would. We need a plan. They devised a strategy. Najoni would create a diversion by spooking the gang's horses, drawing the men away, while Caleb slipped in to free Tarak. It was risky, and Caleb didn't like putting her in harm's way, but her determination left no room for debate. She was no damsel. She was a partner, and a damn good one. As night fell, Najoni crept to the camp's edge and cut the horses' tethers, sending them stampeding through the dust. The outlaws scrambled, cursing and shouting, as Caleb moved in, his knife flashing as he cut Tarak's ropes. The young man nodded his thanks, grabbing a nearby stick as a makeshift weapon. They were nearly clear when a cry rang out. Najoni, cornered by Viper himself. Caleb's heart lurched. He handed Tarak his spare knife and sprinted toward her. Viper had Najoni's arm pinned, his pistol pressed to her side. "You're out of your depth, cowboy," Viper taunted, his eyes glinting like a predator's. "Let her go," Caleb said, his gun trained on Viper's chest. "Or you're done." Viper laughed. "Drop your weapon, or she's the one done." Najoni's eyes met Caleb's, steady and unafraid. She gave a slight nod, and he understood. As Viper shifted his grip, Najoni twisted, elbowing his ribs. Caleb fired, the shot grazing Viper's arm. The outlaw roared, swinging at Najoni, but Caleb tackled him. They grappled in the dirt, fists flying, until Najoni's knife flashed, cutting Viper's belt and sending his gun skittering. Viper shoved him back and fled into the night, his men scattering like roaches. Tarak was safe, but Viper's escape meant the hunt wasn't over. They took shelter in a hidden cave, Tarak resting while Caleb and Najoni kept watch by a small fire. The silence between them was heavy, charged with the day's chaos and something unspoken. "You didn't have to risk your life for me," Najoni said, her voice softer now. Caleb poked at the fire. "Couldn't leave you to face that snake alone." She tilted her head, studying him. "Most men like you would have ridden away. Why didn't you?" "I ain't most men," Caleb said, meeting her gaze. Her eyes held a warmth he hadn't noticed before, and it stirred something in him, a longing he'd buried after losing his family to outlaws years ago. He'd sworn never to care again, but Najoni was breaking through that wall. She looked away, a faint smile curving her lips. Maybe not. Weeks passed as they tracked Viper across the territory. Their partnership, born of necessity, grew into something deeper. Najoni taught Caleb Apache ways, how to read the land, to move unseen, to listen to the desert's whispers. He taught her tricks of his trade, like how to spot a lie in a man's eyes or set a trap for a fugitive. They argued often, her fire clashing with his stubbornness, but each clash revealed more of the other's heart. Caleb admired her loyalty to her people, her courage in the face of danger. Najoni saw past his gruff exterior to a man who carried guilt for a past he couldn't change. One night, under a sky thick with stars, they sat close, sharing a canteen by a campfire. "Why do you hunt men like Viper?" Najoni asked, her voice quiet. Caleb stared at the flames, his jaw tight. "Lost my sister to outlaws when I was young. Couldn't save her. Been trying to make up for it ever since." Najoni's hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that sent warmth through him. "You saved Tarak. And me. That's more than most would do." He looked at her, the firelight dancing in her eyes. "Some things are worth fighting for." She held his gaze, and for a moment the world shrank to just them. Neither spoke, but the air between them hummed with possibility. The trail led to a ghost town, its wooden buildings sagging under years of neglect. Viper had lured them there, his gang lying in wait. The fight was fierce. Gunshots echoed to the empty streets, but Caleb and Najoni moved as one, their trust unspoken. Najoni distracted the outlaws with a well-placed rock slide, giving Caleb the chance to flank them. When Viper charged, his knife gleaming, Caleb met him head-on. They wrestled in the dust, Najoni circling with her own blade ready. A swift kick from her sent Viper sprawling, and Caleb bound his hands with rope. "You're finished, Viper," Caleb said, his voice hard. The outlaw spat, but said nothing as Caleb tied him for the law to collect. With Tarak safe and Viper caught, Najoni could return to her people. But as they stood in the dawn's light, the ghost town silent around them, She lingered. "Will you stay, Caleb?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. His heart ached. He wanted to stay, to see where this spark between them could lead. But the bounty hunter's life was all he knew, and he feared he'd only bring her pain. "You deserve better than a drifter like me," he said, his voice rough. Nijoni stepped closer, her hand resting on his chest. "You saved me, Caleb Holt, but you've taken my heart in return." He leaned in, their lips meeting in a gentle, lingering kiss that spoke of promises unspoken. When they parted, he whispered, "I'll come back for you." As he rode away, the desert stretched wide before him, vast and unforgiving. But for the first time in years, Caleb felt hope, a promise to return to the woman who'd changed his heart.